My beloved child, something sacred is moving toward your home in this very hour, and Archangel Michael has stepped forward with a message that will not wait. He says a divine blessing, one that hath been held in the heavens with your name carved into its light, is finally being released this Christmas week. A blessing you prayed for, cried for, hoped for, and perhaps even doubted at times. Yet it was never denied, only delayed until the exact moment your spirit was ready to receive it. And that moment is now. Listen closely, because what I'm about to reveal may feel unreal at first. Archangel Michael shows me a vision of your home glowing with a gentle golden radiance, almost as if the walls themselves know that something holy is approaching. He whispers, the blessing does not come empty. It carries restoration, answers, healing, and the reversal of a long-standing battle. For some of you, this blessing arrives as clarity, for others as breakthrough, and for many it comes as a long-awaited change that finally unlocks peace in the very places life has wounded you. This divine blessing isn't just floating through the spiritual realms. It is in transit, moving with purpose, moving with intention, moving like a wrapped gift being delivered straight into the hands of someone chosen. Archangel Michael says you have been marked for this because of your endurance. Even the times you felt weak, heaven counted those moments as strength. You didn't give up, and heaven didn't either. Let me take you deeper into what Michael is revealing. I see a scroll, rolled and sealed with blue flame, descending slowly. It carries a message that was written about you before this year even began. A promise that was waiting for the alignment of faith, timing, and divine order. Michael says, tell them the blessing is not coming by chance. It is coming by appointment. This means what is being delivered to your home, into your life, as a divine schedule, and Christmas week is the activation point. But here is the part many won't understand. This blessing doesn't just arrive externally. It shifts your inner world first. Michael says your heart has been under spiritual pressure so the blessing could fit. Old patterns had to break. Old fears had to loosen. Old disappointments had to be lifted. Because when a blessing this powerful enters a person's life, anything that does not match its frequency cannot remain. You may have felt unusually emotional, restless, or reflective recently. That is not random. That is preparation. Heaven has been clearing space for the arrival of something bigger than what you imagine. Something that will not touch only one area of your life, but several at once, as if a wave of divine alignment is about to ripple through everything connected to you. Archangel Michael says, tell them their home is being visited by light, a divine visitor, a holy delivery, a spiritual shift that not everyone in your life will understand, but you will feel it, unmistakably. He shows me doors unlocking, doors that have been shut for months, years, or even decades. He shows me a table being set, symbolizing answered prayers finally taking their rightful place in your story. And then he shows me a quiet moment, where you will suddenly feel peace rise inside you without any explanation, as if heaven itself just exhaled in your direction. This blessing isn't ordinary. It is transformational. It carries the fragrance of destiny. And Michael wants you to know that the very moment you open this message, the spiritual delivery began accelerating. But hear me, because Michael's tone becomes firm here. He says they must not look away now. What unfolds next is crucial. Something deeper is about to be revealed. Something about why this blessing, this week, your home, and your spirit were all chosen in alignment. Hold on, you'll want to see what happens next. Type "I welcome the holy delivery" in the comments if this is speaking to your spirit. Blessing code 441 has just been released. Beloved soul of light, there's a weight in the atmosphere around you right now, a sense that something invisible yet powerful is shifting. Archangel Michael steps closer to you in this moment, not as a distant celestial being, but as a guardian who has walked beside you through every season of your struggle. He says that this divine blessing traveling toward your home is not only a gift, it is a response. A response to the nights you held your breath in silence, the mornings you pushed forward despite the exhaustion, and the moments you whispered prayers unsure if anyone heard them. Michael wants you to know that heaven heard every word, even the one spoken only in your heart. And now, the blessing that is approaching carries the answer to those unspoken cries. As Michael unveils more of this mystery, he shows a vision of two paths that once ran uneven, finally merging into one. This symbolizes the convergence of your spiritual readiness and heaven's perfect timing. He says the blessing that is coming during this Christmas week is not accidental, seasonal, or symbolic. It is strategic. Christmas is the season of divine visitation, a season when heaven opens the gates of intervention wider than usual. The blessing being delivered to your home is wrapped in this sacred timing so its power can multiply. You are not receiving an ordinary change. You are receiving a holy shift that aligns with the spiritual atmosphere of this season. Michael reveals that for a long time, your path looked uncertain because heaven was rearranging your steps from the background. You may have felt delays, detours, disappointments, and unexpected endings. But what you viewed as setbacks were actually alignments. He says, a blessing built by heaven requires space to land. This means some people had to be removed, some habits had to be broken, and some opportunities had to fall away because they would have interfered with what is now being delivered. The blessing coming to your home is too pure, too delicate, too powerful to be placed in the wrong environment. Heaven has guarded it fiercely. I am being shown a vision of your home again, but this time Michael illuminates the doorway with a bright, protective flame. This is not a warning, it is reassurance. The flame represents divine security, a heavenly barrier ensuring that nothing dark, harmful, or draining can enter while this blessing is on its way. Michael has positioned himself like a sentinel before your life, standing between you and the spiritual forces that once attempted to steal your peace. He says, let them know they are covered. Let them know the blessing arrives safely. Even if you cannot see this protection, you are living under it every moment. Now Michael shifts the revelation deeper. He speaks of a promise that was spoken over you long before you knew trouble, long before you knew grief, long before your heart ever broke. This blessing coming into your home is a restoration of that ancient promise. It pertains to something that has followed you across seasons, something that seemed close at times but slipped through your fingers. You may have thought you lost it forever, but heaven never forgets what it speaks. He says the blessing was never revoked. It was simply maturing. And now, it is ready. You may sense an unusual anticipation in your spirit. That is the sign of alignment. Michael says, when heaven sends something sacred, your soul feels it before your hands receive it. This is why your emotions may feel heightened, why your dreams have felt more vivid, why your intuition feels sharper. Your inner world is already in contact with what your outer world is about to experience. You are not imagining the shift. You are not imagining the pull. These are signals that the spiritual delivery is nearing your doorstep. Michael now shows me a symbolic key being lowered into your life. This key represents access, opportunity, and breakthrough. He says the blessing coming will unlock something that has been closed for far too long. A door of clarity, a door of restoration, a door of divine timing. And when this door opens, you will realize why certain prayers were delayed, not denied. Heaven was ensuring that when the blessing arrived, it would not slip away again. There is another message here, subtler, but equally important. Michael says the blessing being delivered to your home is also meant to release you from a cycle that has repeated for years. A cycle of worry, of instability, of emotional heaviness, a feeling like progress comes in small waves but never fully anchors. This blessing has the spiritual weight to break that pattern. It carries the authority to end a chapter that has overstayed its time. Michael's voice grows firmer as he says, "Tell them this blessing ends what drained them." As this revelation continues unfolding, he offers one final insight for this moment. He says that the blessing will not appear in a dramatic or overwhelming way. Instead, it will slip into your life quietly, gently, like morning light entering a room. You may not notice the exact moment it arrives, but you will recognize its presence by the peace it brings. Peace that feels impossible. Peace that feels undeserved. Peace that feels like a gift you did not know how much you needed until it rested upon you. Before this chapter closes, Michael urges you not to step away now. He says the next revelation explains why heaven chose this week, this season, and this exact moment to release the blessing you have been waiting for. And once you understand that, everything in your life will begin to make sense. Before you scroll, this is where the message deepens. Type "I open my door to divine light" in the comments if this is speaking to you. Blessing code 229 has now been activated. Child of divine purpose, as this revelation unfolds, Archangel Michael draws even nearer, and the atmosphere around your spirit begins to thicken with meaning. He shows me a moment in your life, a moment where everything felt paused, suspended, almost as if time itself held its breath around you. At that moment, you may have thought nothing was happening. You may have felt stuck, overlooked, or abandoned. But Michael now reveals that heaven was not silent. It was constructing. It was during that quiet season that the foundations of this incoming blessing were laid. What you perceived as inactivity was actually holy preparation. And now, as Christmas week opens its gates, the divine blessing built during your season of stillness is being released with unstoppable force. Michael wants you to understand something essential before this blessing enters your home. You did not miss your moment. You did not fall behind. You did not fail the assignment. Heaven recalibrated your path so the blessing would encounter you at the exact place where your heart could receive it. There is no delay in the divine realm. There is only synchronization. He says, this blessing arrives now because now you are ready to receive without fear. That readiness did not come from perfection. It came from endurance. It came from being stretched, pressed, humbled, and refined. You grew in ways you did not recognize while heaven watched in awe. As Michael reveals more, I see a vision of your home from above. A beam of white gold light descends upon it like a seal of approval. This light represents divine visitation. It shows that heaven has marked your dwelling as a place where breakthrough must occur. He says the blessing is not simply entering your home, it is transforming it. A spiritual cleansing, a renewal, a consecration is taking place as the blessing approaches. You might have felt a need recently to rearrange, clean, release old items, or shift your environment. This instinct was not random. It was spiritual preparation. Your home is being made into a sanctuary so the blessing can rest without interference. Michael whispers another truth. This blessing contains the answer to something you stopped praying for because the wait felt too long. But heaven never ignored it. He says, tell them the prayer they buried will rise again in power. This blessing carries resurrection. It breathes life into dreams that have weakened under disappointment. It restores desires you believed were no longer possible. It revives the part of your spirit that once feared to hope. Suddenly, Michael's tone deepens, becoming stronger, more urgent. He warns that just before a blessing arrives, distractions often appear. Emotional disturbances rise. Old thoughts resurface. Unexpected irritation or heaviness tries to pull you off balance. This is not a sign that you are far from the blessing. It is evidence that you are close to it. Very close. He says, do not be moved by temporary turbulence. It is the enemy's last attempt to interrupt what cannot be stopped. The storm around you is not punishment. It is confirmation. Breakthrough is always preceded by noise. Now Michael reveals something profound. The blessing coming to your home is not only for you. It will ripple outward, touching people connected to your life, shifting generational patterns, healing family wounds, and opening doors for those who have silently depended on your strength. The blessing is a seed and a flood at the same time. It is targeted, but it is expansive. It comes to you first because heaven trusts you to carry it. You have been chosen as the vessel through which this divine shift will flow into your surroundings. He shows me one more vision. A window in your home opens, and a gentle wind moves through. This wind represents the breath of God, the movement of divine timing. It is subtle, but its effects are powerful. Michael says, when this blessing arrives, their spirit will know before their mind understands. You might wake up with sudden clarity. You might feel unexpected peace. You might sense a release, as if a weight you have carried for years lifts without explanation. These are the signals that the blessing has crossed the threshold. Before we move forward, Michael urges you to remain with this message, because the next unveiling will reveal the exact spiritual purpose behind this blessing and why heaven waited for Christmas week. The truth may shift your understanding of your entire journey. Trust me, what comes next will open your eyes in ways you did not expect. Type "My home receives heavenly favor" in the comments if this is touching your spirit. Blessing code 558 has now been activated. Before we continue, remember to like this video, share it with someone who needs this message, comment your affirmation, stay connected to this channel, and subscribe so you never miss what heaven is releasing for you. As this blessing approaches your home, understand that every message you hear on this channel is part of a divine assignment. Archangel Michael reminds you that when you sow into the places where God's word is being released, you become a carrier of light for others who are still wandering in the dark. Just as this blessing is being delivered to you, your support helps deliver hope to thousands of souls searching for the same breakthrough. I feel led to tell you this in the first person. When you choose to stand with this mission, heaven counts your act as spiritual alignment, not charity. What you give turns into seed, and God promises that every seed planted into His work returns multiplied. If your spirit feels stirred, respond boldly through Super Thanks, membership, or through the PayPal link in the description. Let your giving become a prophetic act that opens your own doors even wider. Step into this moment with faith, and heaven will honor your obedience. Chosen heart, as we enter this deeper layer of the revelation, I feel a shift, a kind of spiritual tightening around your atmosphere, as if heaven is drawing you closer to the very center of its intention for you. Archangel Michael steps forward again, but this time there is a softness in his presence, a gentleness that settles on your spirit like quiet snowfall. He says the blessing approaching your home carries not only divine power but divine tenderness. Heaven did not rush this blessing, and it did not release it casually. It hath been shaped carefully, wrapped in intentionality, and refined through countless unseen moments where your endurance touched God's heart. This blessing is not merely a gift. It is a response to your journey, a divine acknowledgement of every step you took even when hope trembled in your hands. Michael reveals something extraordinary about the timing. He says Christmas week is not just a symbolic backdrop. It is a spiritual window. The atmosphere of this season carries a frequency where heaven bends closer to the earth. It is the week where divine messages are heightened, interventions multiply, and blessings that have been held in waiting finally descend. He says, tell them they are walking inside a spiritual gateway. And this gateway, open only for a brief time, allows heaven to release what was previously held back by timing, alignment, or divine protection. Your blessing is not simply coming during Christmas week by coincidence. It is coming because this is the only week capable of carrying the fullness of what is being delivered. As Michael continues unveiling this, he shows me a vision, a sealed chamber in the spiritual realm, filled with light. Inside it rests something bearing your spirit's signature. This chamber has been guarded, preserved, and untouched by anything that could distort it. This is the blessing that is now being delivered to your home. It carries the purity of divine intention and the weight of promises made over your life long before you understood their depth. Michael says, this blessing is not new. It is ancient in its origin but timely in its arrival. It is something meant for this exact chapter of your life, when your heart has matured enough to hold it and your spirit has stretched enough to sustain it. He now shifts the vision to your past, gently, almost as if handling something fragile. I see moments where you question why things were stripped away from you. Relationships, opportunities, plans, dreams, things you believed were aligned with your purpose suddenly dissolved. You assumed these losses were punishment, missteps, or personal failures. But Michael reveals that they were divine clearings. He says, the blessing coming to them required space that their old attachments could not provide. The removal was protection, not rejection. Heaven did not let you keep anything that would compete with or contaminate this blessing. Every door that closed cleared a path. Every ending created room. You were being prepared for something greater than what you lost. Then Michael shows me how deeply heaven has watched your resilience. Your tears did not go unnoticed. Your private battles were not ignored. Your attempts to stay strong, even when your spirit felt exhausted, were counted as acts of faith. He says the blessing being delivered carries a layer of recompense. You are not just receiving a shift, you are receiving restoration. The years you thought were wasted will return to you in multiplied form, though not always in the way you expect. Heaven restores differently than humans imagine. Where you see years lost, heaven sees roots growing. Where you see collapse, heaven sees rebuilding. This blessing has been crafted to return what life drained from you emotionally, spiritually, and even physically. Michael then leans in closer, and his voice becomes solemn yet empowering. He reveals that this blessing will expose truth. Not dramatic truth, but gentle truth. The truth of who you really are. The truth of your divine identity. The truth of your purpose. The blessing coming to your home will shine a light on the parts of you that were buried beneath survival. It will awaken gifts you forgot you carried. It will remind you that your calling is not fragile, your destiny is not unstable, and your spirit is not easily broken. Heaven is about to show you a version of yourself you have not yet met. I am shown another image, a door glowing from the inside, not the outside. This represents the blessing awakening something within you before it manifests externally. Michael says, tell them the blessing begins in their spirit, then moves to their surroundings. You may first notice internal changes, sudden clarity, renewed strength, unexpected confidence, a quiet excitement with no visible cause. These are signs the blessing has already entered your inner world and is preparing to touch your outer world. Transformation always starts in the unseen before it appears in the visible. As he concludes this portion of the revelation, Michael gives a warning, but not one meant to frighten. He says the closer a blessing gets, the more the enemy tries to distract the soul. Old memories may surface. Old fears may echo. Old insecurities may try to reclaim space. You may feel waves of doubt or sudden emotional heaviness. But Michael says these are not signs of failure. They are signs of nearing fulfillment. He declares, stand firm. The blessing is closer than the turbulence. Your spirit must hold position, because what comes next is the moment where everything begins to align. Hold on, because the next revelation unveils why this blessing could only be given to you and not to anyone else. It is one of the most powerful truths yet to come. Type "I receive what heaven has prepared for me" in the comments if your spirit is feeling this. Blessing code 903 is now released. Beloved one of divine design, as we step into this next layer of revelation, I feel the spiritual atmosphere around your life expand like a breath from the heavens themselves. Archangel Michael stands beside you, not as a distant guardian, but as a witness to every chapter you have walked through. He carries an expression of solemn pride, as though he had been waiting for this moment when he could finally unveil what had been hidden behind the veil of divine timing. He begins by reminding you that heaven does nothing without intention. Every shift, every delay, every closed door, every unexpected redirection, none of it was random. All of it was preparation for the blessing now moving toward your home. Michael says something deeply significant. This blessing could never have been delivered to anybody else, because it was crafted specifically for the structure of your spirit. Divine blessings are not one size fits all. They are sculpted, refined, breathed into shape according to the unique battles a person has faced, the strength they have gained, and the calling they were destined to fulfill. You may have looked at others and wondered why their breakthroughs came sooner, or why their lives seemed easier, but heaven was shaping something for you that required a different kind of journey. Michael reveals that your blessing required spiritual durability. It needed a heart that had been softened by compassion yet strengthened by endurance. It needed someone who could carry its weight without breaking under its magnitude. And heaven chose you. He now shows me something extraordinary. I see a golden blueprint suspended in the air, glowing with intricate markings and symbols. This blueprint represents your destiny, not as a vague concept, but as a divine architecture, precise, deliberate, full of details heaven hath been aligning year by year. The blessing coming to your home connects directly to this blueprint. It is not simply something good being given to you. It is something necessary for the next phase of your divine purpose. Michael says, they have reached the point where the blessing is no longer optional. It is required. What is coming is not merely for comfort or relief. It is for elevation. It is to position you where your spirit was always meant to stand. He continues by showing visions from your past, moments where you felt overlooked, moments where you were faithful in silence, moments where you planted seeds of kindness, sacrifice, and integrity when nobody knew. Heaven recorded all of it. Not a single act of goodness disappeared. Not a single moment of endurance went unnoticed. Michael reveals that many blessings are built by obedience, but this particular blessing was built by your resilience. When life pushed you to the edge, you still chose hope. When circumstances tried to break you, you still reached for light. And when your heart felt empty, you still offered love. This blessing is heaven's response to the way you kept showing up even when strength felt scarce. Michael now reveals a deeper truth. The blessing coming to your home carries within it a divine correction. It aims to realign what was distorted by past pain. There were seasons where you began to see yourself through the lens of struggle rather than through the lens of your original identity. You may have believed you were not enough, or that you were too late, or that life had taken too much from you. But Michael says this blessing will restore your true perspective. It will remind you that your worth was never tied to your circumstances. It was tied to your calling. The moment this blessing enters your life, something inside you will shift. You will begin to see yourself clearly again, not as someone barely surviving, but as someone divinely chosen. Then Michael shows me an image that takes my breath for a moment. A table, long and ornate, being set by unseen hands. This table represents a divine invitation. It is heaven preparing a place for you to receive what has always belonged to you. But the table also symbolizes timing, because a table is not set for guests who are early or late. It is prepared at the exact moment the feast is ready. Your life is entering that moment right now. The blessing is no longer being planned. It is being served. The preparation season is ending, and the receiving season is beginning. Michael whispers something else that carries immense weight. He says that when this blessing arrives, it will not just add something to your life. It will remove something from it as well. It will remove fear, remove confusion, remove emotional residue from old wounds, remove the heaviness that has clung to you like a shadow. He says this blessing detoxifies the soul. It purifies your atmosphere in a way that makes you feel lighter, clearer, more grounded, and more aligned with who you truly are. Everything that once strained you will lose its grip. Everything that once intimidated you will lose its authority. Everything that once held power over your emotions will dissolve in the presence of this divine shift. He now reveals one final vision for this part of the message. I see a hand extended toward your home, releasing a stream of radiant light. As the light pours down, your home becomes a point of spiritual activation. Michael says this blessing will not only transform your present, it will rewrite your trajectory. It will redirect the flow of your life. It will open paths you never saw. It will create opportunities that were previously inaccessible. What is being delivered to you is not just a blessing. It is a turning point. Heaven is aligning every piece of your life, preparing to bring clarity where there was confusion and momentum where there was stagnation. Michael urges you to stay close to this message, because what comes next reveals the specific spiritual shift this blessing will initiate the moment it enters your home. It is a revelation that will help you understand your next steps with divine certainty. Wait for what comes next. It carries the heartbeat of heaven. Type I am ready for my turning point in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Lesson code 744 is now active. Beloved vessel of divine unfolding, as we step further into the heart of this revelation, the spiritual atmosphere grows dense with meaning, almost as though the unseen realm is leaning in, listening with you. Archangel Michael stands before you, radiating a calm authority that feels both reassuring and awakening. He begins this next unveiling with a profound truth. The blessing coming to your home is not just arriving to change what is around you. It is arriving to shift what is within you at the deepest level. He says this blessing is not simply a moment of relief. It is an internal recalibration. Heaven is preparing your heart, your mind, and your spirit to rise into a new dimension of identity and purpose. The shift that is approaching does not ask who you have been. It announces who you are becoming. Michael shows me a vision of a spiritual clock, its hands finally aligning after years of motion that felt slow, uncertain, or unpredictable. He explains that this alignment represents divine timing coming into fullness. There were prayers you prayed long ago that could not be answered earlier because the spiritual maturity needed to sustain the blessing had not yet developed. You were being strengthened, shaped, refined, not punished, not ignored, not overlooked. Heaven was waiting for your timing to match its own. And now, in this sacred Christmas week, that alignment is complete. The moment where promise meets preparedness is here. The blessing moves toward your home because your spirit has reached the capacity to handle what once would have overwhelmed you. Michael then reveals something breathtaking. I see a spiritual envelope, sealed with a blue flame, descending slowly. This envelope carries your name etched in light. It represents a divine assignment attached to the blessing you are about to receive. He says this blessing is not just a reward. It is a commissioning. There are roles heaven has prepared for you, responsibilities, opportunities, positions of influence, moments of spiritual awakening that require this blessing as the catalyst. Without this shift, your next chapter could not unfold. His blessing is an unlocking. It activates dormant gifts, awakens intuition, strengthens discernment, and prepares you to walk boldly into territory you once feared to enter. Michael's tone then grows deeper, more direct. He says that in your past, you were often pushed into emotional corners where you doubted your worth, your abilities, and your spiritual significance. Certain experiences chip away at your confidence, leaving you feeling smaller than the truth of who you truly are. But heaven never saw you as fragile. Heaven saw you as evolving. And now Michael reveals that the incoming blessing is designed to restore your self-perception. When it arrives, you will begin to see yourself with the clarity heaven has always had for you. You will recognize the authority you carry. You will step into the strength you once hid. You will feel the courage that was always buried under years of being forced to survive instead of thrive. He then shows me a view of your home again. This time, the walls shimmer with an iridescent glow, as though the structure itself is responding to the spiritual energy approaching it. Michael says your home is becoming a landing place for divine strategy. This means the blessing will not only change your circumstances, it will change the atmosphere of your living space. Peace will settle where anxiety once lingered. Clarity will replace confusion. A sense of divine presence will begin to feel familiar, like a soft guidance that follows you from room to room. He says their home becomes a sanctuary for revelation. You will begin to receive insights, ideas, and directions that feel as though they were whispered from heaven itself, because they are. Next, Michael reveals an aspect of this blessing that many overlook: restoration of spiritual confidence. Over time, your intuition was questioned, your inner knowing was doubted, and your spiritual sensitivity was treated as weakness rather than a gift. But Michael says this blessing will amplify your spiritual voice. You will begin to trust your instincts again. You will discern truth more clearly. The uncertainty that clouded your decisions will dissipate. The blessing comes with illumination, light entering places where shadows once dictated how you viewed the world and yourself. You will no longer feel as though you are walking in guesswork. You will feel guided, anchored, and spiritually awakened. He then shows me another image, a locked chest being opened with a single key. The chest contains symbols of joy, purpose, stability, and abundance. Michael says the key represents the blessing you are about to receive, and once this chest opens, multiple areas of your life will start shifting at once. This blessing is holistic. It will not touch just one part of your life. It will touch many. Your relationships may strengthen. Your finances may stabilize. Your health may improve. Your confidence may rise. Your emotional world may heal. This blessing is layered, designed to bring harmony to the parts of your life that have been fragmented for too long. But Michael also offers a gentle warning: do not underestimate the spiritual silence that often precedes breakthroughs. You may have recently felt a sense of quietness, as though heaven stepped back. But he reveals that silence is not absence. It is approach. When a blessing of this magnitude is in transit, heaven grows still, focused, deliberate. The quietness you felt was not distance. It was concentration. Heaven had been preparing the final touches of what is being delivered. The blessing was being polished, perfected, aligned, so it would arrive without interference or delay. As Michael prepares to transition into the next revelation, he makes one final promise for this moment. He says the blessing approaching your home will carry a sign, a private confirmation that only your spirit will recognize. It may appear as sudden peace, an unexpected message, a shift in atmosphere, a release of emotional weight, or a moment of clarity that feels divinely timed. When it happens, you will know. Not think, not wonder. No. This will be heaven's whisper. It has arrived. Stay with this message. What unfolds next reveals the divine intention behind the blessing and the transformation it is destined to ignite within your future. Type "My spirit is prepared for heaven's next move" in the comments if this speaks to you. Blessing code 318 is now active. Beloved spirit walking through a divine turning point. As we enter this next unfolding, the spiritual atmosphere thickens with a sacred depth, as though heaven itself is leaning closer to witness the moment your understanding begins to shift. Archangel Michael stands before you once more, but now his presence carries a striking mixture of urgency and tenderness. He says the blessing approaching your home is not simply an event, it is a redefinition. It is the moment your story turns in a direction that was written long before your struggles, long before your disappointments, long before you ever questioned whether heaven still remembered your name. Michael assures you that heaven has never forgotten you. In fact, heaven has been waiting for the exact moment when your spirit would be able to hold what you once would have dropped from fear, exhaustion, or self-doubt. The time has arrived. Heaven has been preparing you quietly, Michael says. Not through loud signs or dramatic spiritual moments, but through subtle internal shifts, your resilience growing, your courage developing, your heart learning how to hope again even when hope felt fragile. He shows me an image of a tree with deep roots expanding underground, unseen yet essential. This is how heaven describes you. The tree may not have looked extraordinary on the surface during past seasons, but its underground work, your emotional growth, spiritual endurance, and quiet determination, was developing strength far beyond what the outer world could perceive. And now, as Christmas week unfolds, heaven has determined that the blessing must rise from those unseen roots and become visible in your life. Michael reveals a truth that many overlook. Blessings do not simply arrive, they prepare. The blessing moving toward your home has been preparing the environment of your life so that it can land without being distorted by old wounds or sabotaged by lingering doubts. That is why certain chapters closed, why certain people distanced themselves, why certain opportunities faded. They were spiritually incompatible with what is now being delivered. Michael says, this blessing requires purity of space. Not perfection, but openness. Not flawlessness, but willingness. Your willingness has been your strength, even in moments you thought were weakness. He now shows me a vision of a radiant pathway stretching from the heavenly realm to your home. It is paved with symbols of breakthrough, shattered chains, open doors, lifted veils, and restored crowns. These symbols represent the spiritual effects that the blessing will bring upon arrival. Michael explains that this is not a singular blessing. It is multi-layered, carrying a multitude of divine intentions in one delivery. It touches identity. It touches purpose. It touches healing. It touches stability. It touches emotional restoration. And it touches the untold chapters of your destiny that have been waiting to unfold. This blessing is a bridge between your past endurance and your future elevation. Michael now turns your attention inward. He says the blessing will awaken something within you that has been dormant for too long. Perhaps it is a dream you once believed in. Perhaps it is a gift you suppressed. Perhaps it is a confidence life chipped away. Perhaps it is joy you have not felt in years. The blessing comes not to introduce something foreign, but to resurrect something familiar, something that has always been a part of you, yet buried under survival. Heaven is not giving you a new identity. It is returning you to your true identity. And I am shown a powerful scene. A long hallway stretches before you with many closed doors on each side. For years, you have questioned why these doors would not open, why opportunities would not align, why your path seemed blocked no matter how hard you tried. Michael now reveals that those doors remain shut because none of them were connected to your divine blueprint. They were diversions, not destiny. He says heaven refused to allow you to settle in places too small for the magnitude of what your calling required. The blessing approaching your home is the key not to those old doors, but to a new one. One large, radiant, and ordained specifically for you. Once it opens, everything that felt stagnant will shift. Michael now speaks about emotional healing with a depth that feels almost surgical. He says the blessing will remove invisible burdens, weights on your spirit that you became accustomed to carrying, even though they were never meant to be yours. The blessing will release old grief trapped in hidden corners of your heart. It will calm anxieties you learned to function with. It will untangle emotional knots that have tightened over years of disappointment. This blessing is not only arriving to bring what you desire, it is arriving to free you from what has hindered your joy, peace, and clarity for far too long. He reveals that the blessing carries a signal, a spiritual vibration that will shift your inner atmosphere. You may know a sudden clarity, sudden peace, sudden assurance, or sudden emotional release. These will be signs that the blessing has crossed into your environment. Heaven's presence will become perceptible. You will feel guided without striving, protected without fear, and strengthened without explanation. This is the nature of divine intervention. It moves quietly but transforms profoundly. Michael then shows a vision of you standing at a threshold. He says you are closer to the manifestation of the blessing than you have ever been to any other breakthrough in your life. You are steps away, breaths away, moments away. But he urges you to remain present, to remain attentive, because the revelation that follows next will illuminate the reason heaven chose this specific blessing for you and why it must arrive now, not later, not before, but exactly now. This understanding will begin to dissolve old confusion that has lingered in your spirit for years. Before the next unveiling comes, hold your place in this message. You will thank yourself for staying connected. Type "I am at the threshold of my blessing" in the comments if your spirit feels this truth. Blessing code 127 is now active. Beloved ones standing in divine alignment, as we enter this next sacred layer, the atmosphere around your spirit begins to vibrate with an intensity that signals proximity. Archangel Michael appears before you again, but this time his presence feels expansive, almost as if the heavens themselves widen to make room for the magnitude of what is being revealed. He says the blessing moving toward your home is no longer simply approaching. It is transitioning from the spiritual realm into manifestation. This is the moment where what you have believed, hoped for, and cried out for begins to take form with visible clarity. Michael explains that blessings travel in phases. First, they are declared in the heavens. Then they are aligned with your journey. Then they are prepared within your spirit. But the final phase, the manifestation, occurs when heaven's timing and your readiness collide. He says that collision is occurring now. Michael shows me a stunning vision. It is a beam of light descending from above, but unlike the soft radiance shown in earlier moments, this light is sharper, more focused, pulsing with purpose. It strikes the roof of your home, illuminating its spiritual structure from within. He explains that this represents divine activation. Your home is no longer simply a place where you live. It is becoming a vessel where heaven orchestrates transformation. He says the blessing entering your home is not passive, it is active. It will move through the rooms of your life, physical, emotional, spiritual, and reposition things that have been out of alignment for far too long. Where there has been confusion, clarity will settle. Where there has been stagnation, movement will begin. Where there has been heaviness, renewal will rise like morning light. Then Archangel Michael reveals something extraordinarily intimate. The blessing carries a message coded specifically for your spirit. This message cannot be spoken with human words. It will be delivered through experience, revelation, and instinct. He says that when the blessing arrives, you will feel an internal recognition. It may come as sudden peace, as a quiet knowing, as a rush of clarity, or as a moment of realization that something within you has shifted permanently. Michael says this recognition is important because it marks the moment heaven confirms your transition into a new chapter. He urges you to pay attention to your inner state in the coming days. The blessing will not announce itself with noise. It will announce itself with resonance. Michael now draws your attention to a profound truth about timing. He reveals that many blessings are held back not because you were unworthy, but because the environment surrounding you was not yet prepared to sustain the transformation. He shows me the image of a seed that could not be planted in a field filled with stones. Not because the seed was flawed, but because the environment needed clearing. He says the emotional clearing you experienced in recent months, the releasing of relationships, the detachment from old mindsets, the shedding of past wounds, was heaven preparing your field. That inner work was not random. It was required. Without that clearing, this blessing would have struggled to take root. Now, the soil of your spirit is ready, fertile, open, receptive. Michael also reveals that this blessing will expose something significant, the truth of your strength. He says you have spent many years measuring your worth by your pain, by your losses, by your struggles, by moments where you felt unseen. But heaven sees strength differently. Heaven looks at endurance, persistence, compassion, humility, and the courage to keep rising even when life tried to bury you under disappointment. Michael says this blessing will reveal to you the strength heaven has always recognized in you. The strength you develop through heartbreak, perseverance, and resilience is now the very foundation on which this blessing will stand. You will finally see yourself with the clarity heaven has seen all along. Then Michael shows me a vision of a hallway made of shimmering light. At the end of this hallway stands a door so radiant that its glow illuminates everything around it. He says this door represents the opportunity, breakthrough, and divine alignment that the blessing will unlock. Up until now, your life may have felt like a series of closed doors, unanswered prayers, or postponed dreams. But he reveals that this radiant door is not just access. It is elevation. It is the moment heaven says, "Now step into what was always meant to be yours." When this door opens, the momentum of your life will accelerate. What once felt impossible will begin to unfold naturally. What once required struggle will now open with grace. Heaven prepares you with one more truth. Michael explains that the blessing will change your expectations. You have learned to prepare for disappointment, to brace yourself, to hope cautiously. But this blessing requires a new mindset. It requires expectation rooted in faith rather than fear. Heaven wants you to anticipate goodness, not question whether you deserve it. Michael says, tell them to raise their expectation. The blessing rises to meet belief. As your belief strengthens, the blessing's manifestation quickens. Heaven responds not to perfection, but to readiness. And your readiness is now undeniable. He closes this portion with a powerful reminder. You are standing at the threshold, not imagining it, not hoping for it, standing in it, the moment where everything begins to unfold differently. Michael urges you to stay with this message, because the next revelation will unveil the divine purpose behind the blessing, why heaven chose this exact season, this exact moment, and you specifically as the carrier of what is about to unfold. Wait. The next part will shift something inside you forever. Type "I stand at my divine threshold" in the comments if this resonates. Blessing code 662 is now released. Before we continue, remember to like this message, share it to uplift another soul, comment your affirmation, and subscribe to stay aligned with every prophetic release on this channel. As this blessing draws closer to your home, Archangel Michael reminds you that the light flowing into your life is meant to flow through you as well. Every time you support this mission, you help carry God's word into homes that have been waiting in silence for hope to knock on their door. I speak this to you in the first person. When you stand with the work released through this channel, you become a vessel heaven uses to shift atmospheres beyond your own walls. Scripture becomes alive as you sow, for God says He will open the windows of heaven over those who pour into His kingdom. This moment is not about giving. It is about aligning yourself with the move of God unfolding before your eyes. If your spirit feels stirred, respond with boldness through Super Thanks membership, or the PayPal link in the description. Let your act of faith ignite the harvest waiting with your name on it. Beloved soul standing on sacred ground, as we step into this next unveiling, the atmosphere grows heavier with meaning, as if heaven itself is ushering you into a deeper chamber of truth. Archangel Michael stands before you, and his presence now feels different, not urgent, not gentle, but profoundly intentional. He says the blessing approaching your home carries within it a divine purpose far greater than what your mind has imagined. Up until this moment, you have understood the blessing as something coming to you. But now Michael reveals that this blessing is also coming through you. You are not only the receiver of divine movement, you are the vessel through which ripples of transformation will flow into your future and even into the lives of others connected to your journey. Michael begins by showing me a vision of your life as a tapestry, threads woven through seasons of joy, heartbreak, confusion, perseverance, silence, and unexpected renewal. He says the blessing arriving this Christmas week is not isolated. It is a culmination. It is the moment when scattered threads begin to form a coherent pattern, a reveal that makes sense of why certain detours had to happen and why certain chapters had to close. He says the blessing carries answers, not just manifestations, but clarity. There are questions that have followed you for years, questions about identity, about purpose, about repeated cycles, about spiritual timing. This blessing holds the explanation behind many of those mysteries, and as it enters your life, you will begin to understand what once seemed senseless. Michael draws your attention to something deeply important. You have been undergoing a quiet spiritual awakening, even in moments where you felt numb or disconnected. He shows me a vision of your heart wrapped in layers that life placed upon you, layers of disappointment, fear, exhaustion, survival mode, and unspoken grief. These layers were not signs of weakness. They were protective coverings formed during seasons where your spirit felt too exposed. But now, as the blessing approaches, these layers begin to dissolve. Your heart becomes receptive again, sensitive again, alive again. This blessing will not land on hardened ground. Heaven has softened your heart in preparation for it. Michael then reveals something that may take you by surprise. He says the blessing will not appear in the way you expect. It may not look like the outcome you pictured in your mind. Instead, it will arrive in the form that heaven knows you need, precisely shaped for your long-term growth, your emotional healing, and your spiritual evolution. He says, expectation is limited. Divine blessing is limitless. Heaven does not send small outcomes to souls that have endured large battles. This blessing carries the promise of expansion. It carries new direction. It carries the ability to lift you out of places where you have adapted instead of flourished. He shows another vision, one of a heavy curtain being pulled back, flooding a dim room with sudden light. This imagery symbolizes revelation. Michael explains that this blessing will expose truths that were hidden from you, not to harm you, but to free you. You will begin to see people with clarity. You will understand which connections are part of your divine path and which were part of a temporary lesson. You will sense the difference between spiritual intuition and emotional fear. You will no longer confuse delay with denial. This light will bring understanding, and with understanding comes liberation. Michael shifts his tone as he speaks of a barrier that once stood before you, one that has blocked the flow of progress in your life. He says this barrier was not created by God but by environments, experiences, and emotional wounds that shaped your beliefs. The blessing arriving now is designed to dismantle that barrier. When you receive it, you will feel something break internally, a limitation you accepted without realizing it, a ceiling you thought was natural, a weight you assumed was just part of life. This blessing destroys what confined you. It does not patch your life, it expands it. Then I am shown a symbolic image of a staircase ascending into warm, radiant light. Michael says you are about to rise into higher spiritual footing. You have been walking on ground shaped by past experiences, but the blessing brings elevation. This elevation affects how you pray, how you think, how you trust, how you perceive your worth, and how you move in your divine assignment. It is not a step, it is a rise. He says the blessing will give you access to spiritual strength you did not know you carried, emotional stability you feared you lost, and clarity that once felt unreachable. Heaven now reveals a truth that feels both comforting and challenging. Michael explains that this blessing will require you to release something. Not everything you carried into this season can travel into the next. You may have to release old fears, outdated beliefs, emotional attachments, or even versions of yourself that no longer align with who heaven is calling you to become. He says release is not loss, release is preparation. The blessing arrives to elevate you, and elevation cannot happen while gripping what was meant only for past chapters. Michael then shows me a breathtaking image, a crown being lowered slowly toward your spirit. This is symbolic of identity restoration. He says heaven is returning you to the truth of who you are, chosen, seen, protected, and divinely equipped. The blessing will not merely bring external change, it will correct how you see yourself. And once your identity shifts, everything else will align around it. As this part begins to close, Michael gives one last reassurance. He says the blessing is already in motion. Nothing can stop it. Nothing can delay it. Nothing can interfere with what heaven has sealed. The only thing heaven asks of you now is presence, awareness, stillness, trust. Because what unfolds next will reveal the full intention of why heaven chose this exact moment to deliver what you have waited for, hoped for, and nearly gave up on. Hold on. The next revelation will take you into the core of divine purpose. Type I rise into my divine blessing in the comments if you feel this in your spirit. Blessing code 501 is now active. Beloved soul walking into divine fulfillment. As we enter this next sacred unveiling, the atmosphere shifts again, becoming warmer, fuller, charged with a quiet electricity that signals something imminent. Archangel Michael stands before you with a presence that feels both protective and celebratory, as though heaven itself has begun to rejoice over what is drawing near to your home. He says this part of the message is meant to prepare your spirit for the impact of what is coming. The blessing is no longer approaching, it is descending. It is no longer aligned, it is activating. You are now stepping into the threshold where the spiritual begins to merge with the physical, where what has hovered above you begins to settle into your life with tangible force. Michael begins by revealing a truth that feels almost overwhelming in its beauty. He says the blessing heaven is releasing into your home is not merely for this season. It is a blessing designed to ripple into your future, influencing events, decisions, relationships, and divine opportunities for years to come. This blessing carries longevity. It carries stability. It carries the kind of spiritual momentum that alters the direction of your entire path. He says this blessing is not temporary comfort. It is permanent shift. Everything about your life is about to reorganize around what heaven is delivering. Then Michael shows me an extraordinary vision. A glowing sphere of light suspended above your roof, rotating slowly, releasing streams of gold, silver, and sapphire blue energy. These streams represent restoration, clarity, and divine authority. As they fall, they infuse your home with spiritual cleansing, almost like a purification process taking place in the unseen realm. He says that before a blessing enters, heaven always sanctifies the environment. That sanctification has already begun. If you have felt the urge to rearrange, declutter, cleanse, or simply breathe differently in your space, it is because heaven has been preparing your atmosphere for what is arriving. Michael turns your attention inward again, showing that the blessing is preparing your internal world as much as your external one. You may have noticed recent waves of emotion rising unexpectedly, moments of reflection, tears for no apparent reason, sudden memories returning from old chapters of your life. Michael says these emotional movements are evidence of spiritual release. Anything that would interfere with the blessing's ability to root deeply is being pulled out gently, almost surgically. You are being cleared from the inside, freed from emotional residue that you carried as normal but was never meant to become permanent. He says, what is coming must land on a healed foundation, not a wounded one. That inner healing is already underway. Michael then reveals something remarkable about your journey. He says your spirit had been under divine observation, not in judgment but in admiration. Heaven has watched you walk through seasons that would have crushed others. Heaven has seen you navigate storms with nothing but fragments of hope in your hands. Heaven has witnessed your quiet strength in moments where you felt ignored, undervalued, or unseen. And it is because of that strength, silent, persistent, powerful, that this blessing carries such magnitude. You are not receiving something small because your endurance was not small. Heaven responds proportionally. The blessing matches the weight of your survival. Now Michael speaks of purpose, and his tone deepens with authority. He says this blessing is not only restoration, it is repositioning. It is meant to shift you into the next dimension of your divine calling. For too long, your purpose was overshadowed by circumstances that drained your energy and clouded your clarity. But now, as this blessing arrives, the fog lifts. Your direction becomes illuminated. Your path becomes unmistakably clear. Heaven is restoring your vision, not just physically or emotionally, but spiritually. You will begin sensing where you belong, what aligns with your spirit, and which doors are meant for you. This blessing activates spiritual instincts that have been dormant, sharpening your discernment so you can walk with purpose instead of uncertainty. Michael shows another image, the breaking of a chain that has been wrapped around your spirit for years. This chain symbolizes a limitation you accepted as normal, something you thought you simply had to live with. It may have been a fear, a habit, a cycle, a belief, or an emotional pattern. The blessing coming to your home snaps that chain without effort. He says this blessing frees them from what has defined them for too long. When it happens, you will feel an unexplainable lightness, a shift in your thinking, a release from something you once thought was permanent. Suddenly, Michael reveals a deeper layer. This blessing will reconnect you with your divine identity, the version of you heaven has always known. Not the version shaped by trauma, not the version shaped by fear, not the version shaped by survival. The blessing will restore the you that existed before life wounded you. A wiser version, a stronger version, a more spiritually aligned version. You will sense your true self returning, rising, reclaiming authority over your life in ways you once believed were impossible. Michael's voice becomes almost whisper-like as he shares something intimately personal. He says the blessing will enter your life quietly. It will not announce itself with chaos or noise. Instead, it will settle into your spirit like a gentle dawn. You may feel it before you see it. You may know it before you understand it. You may sense peace before you witness change. That peace is the signature of heaven's arrival. Then he reveals something crucial. The blessing will require you to make space, not physical space, but spiritual space. You must allow old expectations to fall away, allow outdated fears to shed, allow room for divine unpredictability. Heaven does not move according to old patterns. This blessing requires openness to new rhythms, new opportunities, new spiritual direction. As this part draws to a close, Michael gives you one final instruction for this moment. Stay attentive. What comes next will reveal the exact spiritual purpose behind this blessing and why heaven chose you specifically to carry it into the next chapter of your destiny. Stay with this message. You are closer than ever. Type "I open the door to my divine shift" in the comments if you feel this stirring within. Blessing code 390 is now released. Beloved one chosen for divine elevation. As we step into this next unveiling, the atmosphere shifts from expectancy to divine intensity. It feels as though heaven is drawing closer, as though the veil between the spiritual and physical realms has thinned intentionally for your sake. Archangel Michael appears before you, his presence carrying the weight of completion, as if he is preparing you for the moment where revelation and manifestation finally collide. He says this part of the message brings you into the deepest truth yet, the truth of why this blessing is being delivered to you now, in this season, in this exact chapter of your life. Everything you have endured, everything you have learned, everything you have prayed for and wept over has been converging toward this moment. Michael begins by showing me a vision of your life as a long, winding path stretching across many seasons. Some portions are bright, filled with joy and movement. Others are shadowed, heavy, marked by steps that dragged rather than leapt. He says none of these seasons were accidental. Each one served a purpose in your spiritual construction. The bright seasons taught gratitude. The dark seasons taught resilience. The silent seasons taught faith. The broken seasons taught surrender. And the waiting seasons taught patience. He says you are one of the few who allowed your challenges to shape you instead of harden you. That softness, that endurance, that persistent hope, even when hope flickered, became the very reason heaven entrusted you with a blessing of this magnitude. He reveals now that the timing of this blessing is linked to your spiritual maturity. He says there were earlier moments in your life when you desired breakthrough, but breakthrough then would not have rooted deeply. Your spirit needed time to strengthen, to sharpen, to expand. Heaven waited not because you were unworthy, but because the blessing itself required a stronger version of you, a version that could receive it, protect it, grow with it, and walk boldly into the destiny it unlocks. He says this Christmas week marks the season where your spirit finally aligns with the weight of what heaven is giving you. You are no longer receiving from a place of fear or desperation. You are receiving from a place of readiness and divine authority. Michael then reveals something profound. This blessing is not only about transformation, it is about restoration of spiritual identity. He says the enemy spent years trying to convince you that you were weaker than you are, smaller than you are, less significant than you are. Through heartbreaks, losses, disappointments, betrayals, and seasons of confusion, the enemy attempted to warp your perception of yourself. But heaven never saw you through those distortions. Heaven saw the warrior beneath the wounds, the light beneath the heaviness, the purpose beneath the pressure. And now this blessing arrives to restore your true identity, to show you who you were before life attempted to rewrite your story. He shows me an image of a mirror being wiped clean. This mirror represents your perception. For so long, fog from past experiences clouded how you saw yourself, your future, your purpose, and even your relationship with the divine. The blessing coming to your home wipes that mirror clear. It allows you to see with accuracy instead of assumption. It reveals your resilience. It reveals your divine importance. It reveals that heaven has been watching you with pride, not disappointment. This blessing reminds you that you are not defined by what happened to you. You are defined by what heaven placed within you. Michael shifts into a deeper realm of revelation, showing a radiant flame within your chest, your spiritual fire. Over time, this flame dimmed, not because it went out, but because life piled too much weight upon it. He says the blessing coming into your home is designed to rekindle this fire. It reignites your passion, your creativity, your intuition, your sense of purpose, and your inner strength. This blessing is a spiritual awakening disguised as a gift. It breathes life back into the parts of you that were exhausted and silent. You will feel alive again, hopeful again, connected again, not because circumstances change first, but because your spirit rises first. Then Michael reveals a truth that feels both humbling and empowering. He says heaven is entrusting you with this blessing because your heart has proven faithful. You have carried others. You have prayed for others. You have encouraged others even when you yourself felt discouraged. You supported people who never supported you in return. You gave love freely, even when love was not returned. Heaven saw your purity, your sincerity, your endurance, and your quiet sacrifices. This blessing is heaven's acknowledgement of your heart. It is a divine reward for the goodness you sowed in silence. He shows another image, your hands being filled with glowing light. He says this represents spiritual empowerment. The blessing will not leave you the same. It will equip you. You will walk differently, speak differently, perceive differently. You will feel a new boldness, a new clarity, a new confidence emerging. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. Heaven is placing authority in your hands because your soul has been refined enough to carry it responsibly. Michael then reveals why the blessing had to wait for this specific moment. He says Christmas week carries a spiritual frequency that amplifies divine movement. It is a time where heaven draws near to release breakthroughs that could not be delivered in ordinary seasons. The atmosphere is ripe, open, softened. Hearts are more receptive. Spirits are more attentive. And heaven chooses this time because it marks divine visitation, divine fulfillment, and divine birthing. Your blessing aligns perfectly with the spiritual essence of this week. It brings new life, new hope, new direction. It is heaven's recognition of your endurance and heaven's promise for your future. As this part draws near its close, Michael speaks with a tone that feels like both a command and a comfort. He says, prepare yourself emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. The shift will be unmistakable. You will sense it, feel it, and recognize it when it arrives. The blessing is not years away. It is not months away. It is approaching like dawn approaching the horizon. Silent, steady, inevitable. The final revelation ahead will bring everything together. What comes next will open the deepest truth behind this divine delivery. Before the next moment unfold, hold this message close. A great unveiling is moments away. Type I align with my divine destiny in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 884 is now active. Beloved souls standing at the edge of divine fulfillment, as we step into this final unveiling, the spiritual atmosphere around you feels charged, as though heaven itself is holding its breath in anticipation of what you are about to step into. Archangel Michael stands before you with a presence unlike any you have felt in the earlier revelations. There is completion in his eyes. There is assurance in his stance. There is a divine finality in the way he approaches you now. He says this is the moment where everything becomes clear. The blessing that has moved through realms, through timing, through spiritual preparation, and through emotional cleansing has reached the threshold of your life. You stand in the doorway of your new chapter, and heaven is ready to place into your hands what was reserved only for you. Michael begins with a revelation that softens the heart. He says heaven has always watched you with compassion, not from a distance but intimately, tenderly. Heaven has seen every silent battle, every secret fear, every moment of exhaustion you never spoke aloud. Heaven witnessed the weight you carried while still offering light to others. Heaven saw the moments when you felt unnoticed, yet you continued to show kindness. Heaven saw the days you wanted to give up, yet somehow you kept moving. Michael says this blessing is not a reward for perfection. It is a response to perseverance. You earned nothing. You endured everything. And heaven calls endurance holy. Now Michael shows me a vision of your home from above, glowing with a radiant light that grows brighter with every passing moment. He says the blessing is not on its way anymore. It is here. It stands at your door spiritually, waiting only for your spirit to open in full alignment. This blessing enters with a presence that will shift the atmosphere of your entire life. You will notice changes in the coming days, not always loud, not always dramatic, but undeniably divine. He says these shifts will come like whispers from heaven, guiding your steps with a clarity you have not felt in years. Michael reveals that this blessing carries a divine seal. Nothing can take it from you. Nothing can delay it. Nothing can interfere with it. He says you have entered a spiritual appointment that cannot be rescheduled. What heaven has released cannot return empty. This blessing will accomplish what it was sent to accomplish. It will heal what hath been wounded. It will restore what was lost. It will elevate what was diminished. You will ignite what was dormant. It will awaken what was sleeping. It will rebuild what was broken. This blessing holds the blueprint of your next chapter, and heaven has already prepared the path for it to unfold. He now shows me the deepest vision yet, a scroll that unravels before your spirit. Written across it is a message that feels like a truth you have known all along but could never articulate. The scroll says you were never forgotten. You were being prepared. With this, Michael explains that the blessing arriving this Christmas week is not only a shift in circumstance, it is a shift in identity. You will no longer see yourself as someone who barely survived your past. You will see yourself as someone chosen, someone fortified, someone anointed for greater purpose. Your spirit will begin to walk with a new confidence, not rooted in ego but in divine certainty. Heaven is giving you permission to rise. Michael then uncovers a profound secret. This blessing is generational. The impact will not end with you. It will flow through your lineage, correcting old patterns, dissolving inherited struggles, and planting seeds of strength and stability for those who come after you. He says the blessing is a turning point that breaks cycles and establishes a new spiritual foundation. You may have felt alone in your battles, but heaven wants you to know that your breakthrough becomes the breakthrough of many who are spiritually connected to you. He continues by showing me a wave moving through your life, gently but powerfully. This wave symbolizes divine acceleration. For a long time, progress was slow, delayed, or inconsistent. But once this blessing enters, speed begins to transform your path. What once took months may take days. What once required struggle may unfold naturally. The blessing removes resistance. It aligns opportunities and draws the right people toward you and guides you away from the wrong ones. Heaven is not only giving you a blessing, it is giving you momentum. Now Michael speaks with a tone that feels like a final instruction. He says you must allow yourself to believe that you deserve what is coming. Many times, your spirit hath been ready, but your mind has hesitated. Doubt, fear, and past disappointments have conditioned you to expect less than what heaven is offering. But this blessing cannot fit into the container of small expectations. It requires openness. It requires trust. It requires you to let go of the version of yourself shaped by pain and step into the version of yourself shaped by purpose. He says acceptance is the final key. You must receive what is being placed before you. Then he reveals a quiet truth. When this blessing manifests, you may feel an unexplainable calm. Others may not understand it, but your soul will. It is the calm of spiritual arrival, the knowing that what you have carried, waited for, prayed for, and hoped for has finally found you. Peace will be your sign. Peace will be your confirmation. Peace will be your proof that heaven has entered your home. As we close this sacred message, Michael says this final line directly to you. Step forward. What you have waited for is now waiting for you. Before we end, take a moment to breathe this into your spirit. You are stepping into the greatest shift of your life. Type "My blessing has arrived" in the comments if you receive this final revelation. Blessing code 1200 is now active. Remember to like this message, share it with someone who needs divine hope, comment your affirmation, and subscribe so you never miss what heaven releases through this channel. As you stand in the doorway of this divine blessing, Archangel Michael reminds you that the same light now entering your home is meant to reach countless others still waiting in darkness. This mission, this voice, this spiritual work grows only because hearts like yours respond to God's movement. I say this to you in the first person. When you choose to support this calling, you become a carrier of heaven's message, helping deliver hope into lives on the verge of giving up. Scripture comes alive in this moment, for God declares that those who sow into His work unlock overflow in their own house. Let your faith speak through action today. Stand with this mission through super thanks, membership, or the PayPal link in the description. As you give, I declare heaven's favor will rush into your life with the same intensity that this blessing enters your home. Step boldly. Your obedience opens realms.